Our first speaker of the day is Pat Miller, and I think many, if not all of you, know who she is. But this is the first time for me to meet Pat. She's here with her husband, Lynn, who's sitting up here beside her. I had the opportunity of sitting beside them for dinner last night and learned to know them better. Let me say, first of all, I sort of view Colorado as my second home state. Lived there for a couple of years. I have two sons there and a brother that's lived there for many, many years, so we get out there quite frequently. And in addition to being a beautiful state, I have some personal connections with it. But then I find out that Lynn's a pilot also, and Pat's was at least working on it, but they have the ideal situation where they live on the runway. They live on a private airstrip, and so they have a garage, a hangar for a garage to put their airplane in, and that's the sort of thing I've always dreamed about having. But great situation there. Pat served in the Colorado legislature in the House of Representatives there during the 90s, where she distinguished herself as a champion of life, liberty, and limited government. She ran for Congress 2 times, and of course, most recently, last year's election, she ran on the Constitution Party ticket for Lieutenant Governor with Tom Tancredo. She's been active for many, many years in the Right to Life movement, very active there in Colorado and nationally, and I'm really looking forward to hear what she has to say. So, Pat, come forward. Let's give her a good welcome.
Well, good morning. Greetings from colorful Colorado, where I hear they have snow. Last year at this time, I was in the middle of a race, and it was so much fun. I think it was fun because I was running as a partner and not the main candidate. So when all the hits came, Tom had to take them instead of me for a change. And so I really enjoyed it. And I was happily retired at the time. And when Tom called and said, what are you doing? Tom and Jackie and my husband and I have been friends for many, many years. And I said, well, I'm organizing a bake sale for our HOA. And he said, I said, I'm really busy. He said, well, would you like to get a little busier? I said, well, I don't know what. He said, well, I was wondering if you would run as my lieutenant governor candidate. And I said, are you serious? I was so out of politics at the time. But you know what? You have to be instant. When the Lord calls you, you need to be ready to just step out. And so we stepped out and we started running right away. We ran and ran and ran, and it was wonderful. It was fun. It was the first time in my political career that somebody working with me said, go out and be as pro-life as you want. I thought, okay, I will do that. Yeah, it was great. But who we are today and what we do today is only a reflection of where we've come from. And I'm thinking I have to just come up here after Paul Venable gave that speech. But he was talking a lot about the past too. And I have a very lively past in politics. I was raised on a small farm in Illinois, the second of 7 children. My grandfather was a county commissioner. My dad was on the school board. My mom was president of the PTA, and we were all Democrats. And so when we moved I met my husband in high school, and when I say I up here, it's really we, because my husband and I are one, and we've done everything together. I couldn't have done anything without his help. So we moved to Colorado in 1971, and I went to a Democratic precinct caucus. And at the time, they were saving the baby seals. And I thought, well, that's nice, but what about the baby humans, Why aren't we saving them? So my husband and I had a marital difficulty, and he left me at that time, and I recommitted my life to the Lord. I had gone forward at a Chicago meeting with Billy Graham and given my life to the Lord when I was 16, and I really didn't understand what that meant until I had the Lord took me clear across the country to Colorado and took my husband away from me in order for me to really see who the Lord was in my life. And I recommitted my whole life to him. And I'll tell you what, if I hadn't done that, and if I hadn't gone through, my husband and I have been married 43 years, by the way. God is a God of restoration. He restored. And so if I had not learned the lessons in that, I could not have gone through what I went through in politics. When I changed spiritually so much, I started reading the platforms for the first time in my life, and I thought, my gosh, I'm not even a Democrat. I'm a Republican. And so I thought, I'm going to the Republican caucus. They're the guys with the white hats, right? I thought. We were homeschooling in the mid-'80s. Nobody was homeschooling in the mid-'80s. I didn't have any mothers that I could call and cry with. If you're a mom, a homeschooling mom, it's tough. It was really tough at the very beginning, very tough. You didn't have any support. My own mom said, you know what, Eric's going to be stunted socially, Anyway, he was our son, Eric, went on to become a Marine, and now he's given us 2 beautiful grandchildren. So he was not stunted socially because we took him out of public school. Anyway, when we were homeschooling, I learned so much about history. We didn't have history like the homeschooling books had history. And so I went to the first Republican caucus, and I love grassroots. I love that. I just love the name of it, grassroots. And we had 2 precinct caucuses meeting at this first one that I went to, and there's 7 people out of 2 caucuses. And it came time to draft a resolution for the Republican Party platform, and each precinct could draft their own resolution, send it to the state, and then we'd all vote on it. And I was so excited. I thought I was wrapped in the flag. You know what I mean? And so it came time to submit a resolution, and here I am. I'm like this. I'm always volunteering. My husband says, could you wait till they ask the whole question before you volunteer? So I said, I'd like to submit a pro-life resolution. Pro-life was part of the platform, the Republican platform. And the secretary stopped writing. And she said, we can't do that here. I said, what? This is grassroots. This is where we do it, isn't it? Well, there was a big fight then. It's always a fight, a controversial issue. Finally, the head of the caucus said, okay, we'll vote. And we won 4-3. And I think, if I hadn't said it, where would we have been? You have to stand up at some point. And when I was running for office the first time, a good friend came and said, I was at a PTA meeting last night, and the state senator, Republican, got up and said that Pat Miller, was anti-education. I thought, please, who can be against education? I'm for education. And I said, did you get up and straighten him out? And she said, I just feel really bad. I just couldn't do that because, I thought my son's teacher was there, and if I got up, and she said, I just feel terrible today. And I said, at some point, how you feel today is going to be so much worse than if you had just gotten up and stood up and said what you felt. And too many of us are just too quiet. When I was in the state legislature, which, by the way, the state chairman, or the county chairman of the Republican Party, when I was running for the state house, said to me, we got to have a meeting because the state senator has already told me that if you win the primary, he's going to endorse the Democrat. And I said, so why are you not talking to him instead of me, And then they had me sign a document that said if I did not get top line, I would drop out of the primary. I signed it, but my opponent never did. And I got top line, and he didn't drop off, so we were in a race. And I won by 58 votes out of over 20,000 cast. And that was not without a fight, because my opponents were taking my brochures out of the packets that were going door to door. The county chairman sent out a sample ballot, and my name was not even on it. And so my campaign raised all kinds of fuss and everything, and they had to send out at their own expense a separate card just for me. So, God has a great sense of humor. And I thought, you know what, I got more publicity out of that than if they had just put my name on the ballot in the first place. Anyway, when I won this race, of course, they had an automatic recount, and it turned out the same. And I got to the Capitol, and I thought, what on earth have I done? I'm at the Capitol. You know, somebody said, how much does a state rep make? I said, I don't know. I'm just running. I don't know. I was a homemaker. I loved being a homemaker, canning, gardening, all of that sort of thing. But I knew from Phyllis Schlafly what was going on in education. And I got tired of hearing the representative from the teachers union constantly asking, I would read the papers, constantly asking for money, always, every state. There's never enough money for education. So when I got in the legislature, I asked to be on the education committee, and here I was sitting in my chair, and here comes this lady begging for money. And I said finally, how much do you want? How much would you need? And she said, excuse me? I said, well, you're wanting more money, how much would it take? Well, there's no answer. They just want more. There's never a bottom line. Yeah, always more, never a bottom line. So it was great. I could vote no. I loved it. Finally, I could vote no. I was also a legislative aide for a state representative. I learned a lot. You know, you go down as a freshman to the legislature, and then the first 3 weeks you become a senior because you learn so much so fast. And I saw my life as this big pie, and I had 2 or 3 things that were really, really important to me. But when you get down there and you start learning about everything else, those pieces sort of start getting a little bit smaller, and other issues come up. I went down. My motto was defending the family, and somebody said, defending the family from what? You know, hello. I said, government intrusion. Government intrusion into the family. They're dictating who the family is. They're rewriting what the definition of a family is, and I'm just tired of it. I don't know how God can stand us. I really don't. I don't know how. He's definitely long-suffering. And I was the first person to start introducing pro-life legislation. We had what was called the Woman's Right to Know Bill, and I was co-sponsoring it with a state senator. And it said that women who are contemplating an abortion should be given all the information that they need to make the correct decision. And that bill was brought to me by one of my constituents because she had had an abortion. She was in her late 50s, and she had never told her parents because she was so devastated by what she had done. And she said, if I'd had more information then, I wouldn't have made the same decision. So we carried that bill. And one of my colleagues came up to me and said, this bill you brought, I've had phone calls, day and night phone calls. And I said, oh, that's great. You know, it's great to hear from your constituents. I had such a different view of government than the rest of them. And he said, I'm telling you this, don't you ever bring a bill like that down here again. Well, the House Majority Leader found out about it, and we had a meeting, and he said, Representative Miller can bring any bill she wants down here because she's representing her own constituency. And I thought, amen, thank you very much. When I left the legislature the first year, Wilma Webb was the state representative. She was the wife of Mayor Wellington Webb of Denver. And we both served on the Education Committee and on State Affairs Committee. And she came up to me and she said, well, I'm not running again. And she said, I have to tell you this. She said, you really didn't say very much at the committee hearings. But she said, you said things I've never heard before. And I had to think about that because I criticize people if they don't understand where I'm coming from. But if they've never heard what we are trying to say, we can't really criticize them. And so I think we're so intimidated, and I'm putting myself there, by making everybody happy. You know, we just feed them pablum is what I call it. Yeah, amen. And to stress my point, you know. And when I ran for office, I had a little newspaper, and on the front of this, I had a picture of the Boston Tea Party. And I said, it's time for another Boston Tea Party. And so today, when the Republicans who are Tea Party people say, Pat, you should join the Tea Party, I said, I was in the Tea Party in the early 90s. Where were the rest of you, you know? I've run for Congress twice, and the main population source in my district would have been the city of Boulder. Do you all know city of Boulder? I did not quite align with Boulder, and I ran against David Skaggs. I remember doing a debate, and the question came up about the Second Amendment. I was very, very strong on the Second Amendment, the right to defend ourselves. And David Skaggs said that he didn't really believe in the Second Amendment because it really only applied to muskets. Yeah, and he got elected. I don't understand it. What is wrong with the voters? I just didn't get it. I don't understand it at all. I was elected to go to the National Convention in Houston, and I was on the platform committee, so I could help draft the platform for the Republican Party. I was so honored. And another lady and I got to do the whole thing on education, and her name was Mary Kay Legg. How could you ever forget a name like Mary Kay Legg? Anyway, we had a ball. We were writing about vouchers and everything, and we would hand in drafts during the day. And pretty soon, about the middle of the afternoon, these guys come up with their suits and ties and everything and said, "We need to see you." And so Mary Kay and I got up and we walked and walked and walked in this huge convention, and finally we came to a room and everybody's sitting around a table and there's coffee and these guys are sitting. They said, "Well, we have seen your draft and you have the word revolutionize education. We have done a focus group on that word, and that is not a really popular word." And so I just sat there and listened, and they said, "And we appreciate your attempt to write this, but Lamar Alexander, who was then the head of the Department of Education, he is here, and he has decided, he's lent his expertise to writing this." I was practically in tears, and I got up to leave, and they said, "Wait a minute, where are you going?" And I said, "You know what? I spent my own money to come down here. I was elected by the people of my state to come down here and write this." And I said, "I don't approve of what you're doing, and I'm not going to sign off on it." So I got up and walked out. And all the way back to this room, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what have I just done? Sometimes I just step out. I feel like Peter getting out of the boat. And then you see the waves coming after you're out there, and I think, what have I done? And I went back, and I sat down, and everybody in the room said, "What happened? What happened?" And I told them, and they all said, "You know what? If they change that to what you don't want, we're going to follow your lead. And if you say vote against this, we're all going to vote with you." See, these were grassroots Republicans. They were like me. It was so refreshing to be with people who, I like to speak to crowds who agree with me. It's really fun, And in the state of Colorado, I don't know if it's like that in your state, but the Republican Party at the top was not indicative of the Republicans on the bottom like me. And we fought and we fought and we fought for everything. They told me, "If you'll come to the table, we're not that far apart. We're all Republicans. You need to be a team player. If you just compromise, we need to compromise." I said, "Well, what would you like me to compromise on?" "Well, vouchers, that's really bad. Pro-life, we can't be that. And the Second Amendment." I said, "Compromise. Okay, what are you guys giving up?" That's exactly dead silence. It was capitulation, not compromise. And you know what? Good, well-meaning people will say to you, "But Pat, we must do everything in love. You're just so too salty. I got out of the salt shaker. You're too salty. You need to do everything in love." And I said, "Okay, I love God. I love the family. I love this country I live in. There's so many things I love. I think I am doing things in love, So when it came time to depart the political arena, we moved up from the Denver area. We moved up to a small community called Erie, Colorado, and I got involved, head of the president of the Homeowners Association. That is where the rubber meets the road, I got to tell you. If I thought I'd been in trouble before, our HOA decided to sue the town of Erie. I mean, does it trouble that follows me or what, I'm just a person who, if you see something wrong, I can't complain about it unless I try to do something about it. And too long, we as Christians have sat and not done enough. And of course, I'm talking, I know, to the choir here, but I just feel like we're running out of time. And I have said this over and over. It was amazing when I went out to give speeches during this last campaign with Tom as a Constitution Party person. I love the Constitution Party platform. Please don't change it, and please don't have candidates run who have not read it and who do not abide by it. But I found I was giving the same speeches that I had given in the 90s. Nothing had changed. I was still, my campaign told me when I was giving a speech, I said, we need to abolish the Department of Education. You can't say that. Don't say that. I said, you know what? I get a standing ovation every time I say that. Why would I not keep saying that? The Department of Education is not constitutional at all. We should not have a Department of Education. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to the unborn, I love those babies. I love them. And for somebody to tell me to shut up about being pro-life, you know what? It's just so hard for me to be loving to them. It's very hard because those babies don't have a voice. And that's where life is. God is the creator of life. And for us to not get out there and pursue that and constantly go after that, I have one person I really have to be accountable to, and that's the Lord. And I'm thinking, I'm standing before him, and he's going to say, well, why did you vote for this guy? You know, he wasn't even pro-life. Well, he could win, you know. We got to vote for the person who can win. You know, who cares what he stands for? That's what the Republican Party is constantly telling everybody else. Pat Miller cannot win. You need to vote for the person who can win. And so after one of my, I've only won one race out of 4 or 5. I've lost track. The Lord always said, run. He never did tell me I was going to win. You just run with all you've got. You give people the choice. This is what I stand for. You pick. And at some point, you're going to have to answer. We are going to have to answer for every vote we give. And I want to be able to stand before the Lord and not say, well, you know, I voted for so-and-so because everybody told me he could win. That's not going to hold much water with him, I don't think. I'm not sure. In the song, when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid if you just stop right there. I was afraid every time I had to go out and do a debate. I was afraid doing television or radio because they were never on my side, never. And my campaign was always leery of me saying anything because I might say the wrong thing, you know? And so this last election when Tom said, be as pro-life as you want. Go out there. Just do what you want. I had a ball. I talked about it. I talked about the Second Amendment. I talked about illegal immigration. I talked about the economy and taxes. It was wonderful. Of course, we lost, but you know, it's amazing. At 6:30 that night, the Rasmussen poll said the biggest upset of the night will be the Tancredo governor race, and by 7, we were declared lost. So something happened in that last half hour, and it's not good. Something happened that was not good. And Tom would have made a great governor. I know he's changed back to the Republican Party, and I'm disappointed in that, but I think he wants to run again, and he's got a lot of people who are putting pressure on him. And so I don't make any excuses. I'm staying where I'm staying. This is, you know. We just need more of us. We need more. Yeah, we need more of us. And I'm talking to people. I had a lot of people who said, I wasn't going to vote for Tom until he picked you. I thought, well, thank you. I think there's like 3 people. I don't know. But those are the ones I remember. You know what I mean? And so my favorite quote is a quote from Mother Teresa. I am not Catholic. When I was head of a pro-life organization in Colorado called Citizens for Responsible Government, our group and a lot of the pro-family, pro-life groups in Colorado went together and we brought Mother Teresa to Colorado. And I got to meet her at the airplane. She's just a little tiny thing. And there's this aura about her. She, to me, was a saint. I mean, she had a quote that's called, she says, we can do no great thing, only small things with great love. And I said that nearly every speech I ever gave because, you know, I was never out to do any great thing. The Lord has never put me in a position to do anything great. But if we all do a small thing with all our hearts, it's amazing what one person can do. I couldn't have done it without my husband, my family. And, you know, I'd pray before I went out. And I'd say, Lord, you've got to be there ahead of me. You got to be ahead of me for the debates. I'm scared to death. I mean, who am I to be debating this? I don't know how many terms David Skaggs has been in office, but yeah, too many, that's for sure. I ran against him twice, and then he retired. I tell people I just wore him out. You know, I just wore him out. But we can't get worn out. we have to keep plugging away until the Lord says it's no longer. I think there are still people whose minds need to be changed. And we can change minds, but the Lord has to change their hearts. And if they're not given all the information that they need, they're not going to do that. And so I'm going to go from here. Colorado is now, the Constitution Party is a major party in Colorado. I'm not sure that's good or bad. Now we have to follow all the rules, you know. It's more fun when you don't have to follow the rules. And they're going to be after us, I know. And I don't care. I don't have anything to lose. I've never felt I had anything to lose when I ran for office. I always told it like it was. And, you know, when you look back and you can think, yeah, I lost, but I don't have any regrets for losing. Somebody said, success isn't measured by winning or losing, but by how faithful you are to the task. And I was faithful to the task, but I'd still like to have won. You know, I was always out to win. So I guess I'm just going to leave you with Mother Teresa's quote, that we can do no great thing, only small things with great love. Thank you for inviting me here. It was wonderful to meet you all.